Hello, this is Dr. Moyer from Eastern Illinois University talking about Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Lawrence Kohlberg was born in Bronxville, New York. He only lived to the age of 59. He earned his bachelor's degree in 1 year from the University of Chicago, which is pretty amazing. Very smart guy. He attended Andover Academy in Massachusetts, which was a private high school. He taught at the University of Chicago from 62 to 68, and then he taught at Harvard from 68 to 87. In 1971, he was in Belize conducting research, and he actually caught a tropical disease that caused him intense abdominal pain. And due to this, he was always in pain, and he was depressed as well. And he actually committed suicide by drowning near Logan Airport in Boston at the age of 59. Dr. Kohlberg was a very casual and unassuming man that was popular with students. He didn't dress up when he taught class, but students seemed to respect him and enjoy this. Kohlberg's theory builds upon Piaget's work. He wanted to focus more on the moral development of children, and he developed a stage theory about how that happens. And he wasn't really interested in the yes or the no. When it came to moral questions, he was more interested in the reasoning. He wanted to know the why. And so he developed this story, Heinz steals the drug, which is a story that is used to test Heinberg's theory. And I'm actually going to read you the story. Sorry, here comes my dog. Not sure why. Just ignore that clicking in the background. In Europe, a woman was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her. It was a form of radium that a druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which was half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later. But the druggist said, "No, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it." So Heinz got desperate and broke into the man's store to steal the drug for his wife. Should the husband have done that? So that's the story that is told to determine, and how each child responds determines what stage they are actually in, according to his theory of moral development. He developed a classification system to classify each of the boys that were in his sample. I should note, they were all boys from middle and lower class families in Chicago. There were 72 in total, and they were ages 10, 13, or 16. Once he developed his classification, he then had colleagues test the classification and get what is called inter-rater reliability to see if others would score in a similar manner. So here's an overview of the theory, just to help. You kind of see that they are broken into 3 general levels, but there's 6 stages. And I think this is a good one. I find it the best one to remember what each stage is about. Stage 1, obedience and punishment. Stage 2, and it's about avoidance of getting in trouble. Stage 2, individualism and exchange. Kind of when it's what's in it for me, lower the pain, but up the pleasure. Then the next level, stage 3, good boy, good girl. Makes me look good. I can gain the approval of others. Stage 4, to keep law and order. That's the rule. It's the law. Then third level, stage 5, social contract, focusing on the common good and the welfare of others. And then stage 6, principled conscience, personal integrity, no matter the price. So let's go through each of these. Starting with level 1, pre-conventional morality. And Kohlberg believed that this level 1 occurred between the ages of 3 and 7. The first stage is called obedience and punishment orientation. And kind of like the model we just saw, obedience and punishment, avoidance of getting in trouble. That is the focus. So children will say after hearing the story that it's wrong to steal, it's against the law, Hines will get punished. But they don't speak as members of society yet. They see morality as something external to themselves, something that big people or adults say that we have to do. Stage 2 is individualism and exchange. And now there's not just one right view. So after hearing the story, it's relative to what Hines wants to meet his own self-interest. People are free to pursue their own self-interest. So one child might say, well, maybe Hines wants his wife to die so he can marry a new, younger wife. Others may say, no, it's okay to steal it because he needs it to save his wife. And it just depends. It's all relative. They're starting to develop their own individual opinion about this. The next level is level 2, conventional morality. Kohlberg believed this occurred from ages 8 through 13. So now they're approaching their teens. Stage 3 was called good interpersonal relationships. People should live up to the expectations of family and community. And so, good behavior. Hines was a good man for wanting to save his wife's life. His intentions were good. And that's important to children of this age. The druggist is labeled as bad. He's selfish, he's greedy, he's mean. He's only interested in himself and money. The judge would look at all sides to see that the husband is good and the druggist is bad. Stage 4, on the other hand, maintaining the social order. Now their children are more concerned with society as a whole and obeying the laws, respecting authority, performing one's duties so that social order is maintained. So understanding that Hines' motives were good, but children at this age can't quite condone the theft because society wouldn't function well if everybody did what Hines did or did what they wanted. Yeah. Okay, and then level 3, post-conventional morality. Now children are approaching adulthood. Stage 5, social contact and individual rights. Children at this stage will not generally condone breaking the law, but they believe that the wife has a right to live, and that right has to be protected. So liberty and life should be preserved. They might inflict a light punishment on Hines because of his intentions. So again, intentions become important. And it's all about what a society ought to be like. Family is more important than money. And at this level or stage, this is important. Stage 6 is called universal principles. And this is when children, now they're adolescents, focus on treating all people in an equal way, all people in an impartial manner, and they have the ability now to view the situation through the eyes of the wife, through Hines, and the druggist. So they're able to take different perspectives, and they believe that laws are valid provided they're grounded in justice. Otherwise, civil disobedience is sometimes called for. So if a law is not grounded in justice, we have an obligation to disobey. And this is when they might argue about, they wouldn't necessarily say that Hitler's Germany, you have to follow the rules. They would say you don't follow them because it's not just. And that some people are being treated poorly while others are not. And that's why I put the picture of Martin Luther King up, because it's stage 6, this kind of moral reasoning reflects what Martin Luther King was about. There is talk of a possible seventh stage, but Kohlberg never really developed it and put it into his theory. He said that this isn't really a stage, but more of a spiritual plane, a spiritual development growing out of personal reflection and experiences. So feeling at one with something bigger than oneself, feeling at one with the world, with God, with nature, etc. This means that as far as morality, you do the right thing even if others don't, even if it feels pointless to do so, even if you're made fun of, even if you're in the minority. You stick to your beliefs, all because we're part of something much larger than ourselves, and everyone should act morally even when it feels pointless to do so. And so this isn't really a stage that everyone reaches, but Kohlberg did talk about it and mention it as a state of consciousness that some people do get to, and that's how they explain and justify their moral behavior. So the idea of the stage concept, looking at Kohlberg's theory to see if it meets the rules of a stage concept. Number one, qualitative differences. Yes, Kohlberg's stages are qualitatively different from one another. They are distinguishable. So it meets number one. Number two, structured wholes. So stages aren't just isolated patterns of responses. They are general patterns that consistently show up across different types of issues. That's important. So it meets criteria for number two. Number three, invariant sequence. People don't skip stages. When Kohlberg first tested this to see if his theory met the stage concept, he realized that his samples were all cross-sectional in nature, which means like a snapshot in time, looking at people at one point in time in their development. He at this point, he realized he needed longitudinal studies, and when he conducted his first longitudinal study, he found that he actually had to revisit the coding schematic because not everyone was moving from stage to stage. Some people were regressing, and others weren't reaching stages 5 and 6. And so he readjusted his coding schematic, and he eliminated stage 6 and said that not everyone gets there. So, and then he conducted more longitudinal studies and found that this coding schematic fit better. The hierarchic integration means that people don't lose the insights they gained at lower stages, and so it met the criteria for number 4. And then cross-cultural universality. So these underlying modes of reasoning are believed to be cross-cultural and apply to different cultures. Before we evaluate the theory as a whole, we do have to talk about Gilligan, because she was a student of Kohlberg's and did publish with him, but she pointed out that his theory was based upon how males develop moral reasoning. She said that this was based on the male perspective and not the female voice, and that it, as such, did not necessarily apply to females. And she talked about how females employ an ethic of care in their moral reasoning, meaning they see themselves in relation to others. So they're more socially oriented. And this makes sense given how females are socialized as children. So Gilligan would point out that there are some gender differences. However, overall, these gender differences didn't turn out to be too drastically different, but females do tend to employ this ethic of care. So on evaluation, the theory is well respected and well used even today. We hear about it all the time. You can't talk about moral development without talking about Kohlberg. It has been criticized for being masculine, and I see a mistake in my PowerPoint, which always is going to irritate me, for being too masculine, supposed to be TOO. Anyways, and too Western. So too focused on the Western culture's civilization and socialization. But Kohlberg did provide the world with an idea of how children grapple with moral issues. So regardless of how the theory has been criticized, we still use it and we're still building upon it to understand how children develop their moral reasoning. So, good theory. I also want to point out that he did not believe that this is something that's determined by a genetic blueprint necessarily, nor is it determined totally by the socialization of children. That really it's part of a socialization, so societal, and it does follow along with the cognitive development that Piaget pointed out. Okay, that's all.